So right now, the problem we're gonna be fixing is the blade not spinning when you're revving the engine. So if you're pulling that trigger, nothing's happening over at the blade. The reason being is because the shaft has been pulled off of the engine itself here. So the clutch is not actually spinning or engaging. There's an indicator you can use to identify this issue ahead of time. If this gap is too big, that is likely because of this issue. Over time, the engine being pulled on with the head stuck in the truck or vice versa will just slowly separate it until eventually nothing's connecting the head to the body. So to fix this, I'm gonna turn this over. There's a screw underneath this hole. This hole gives us access to the shaft tube, and specifically the screw that clamps onto it. And so if I go down in here, I can find that screw and I can loosen it. So I'm gonna loosen that screw, make sure it's nice and loose. This way I can pull the shaft back onto the brush cutter. I don't need to worry about it being lined up because there are vibration dampeners in here that actually push into designated slots in this plastic housing. So as long as those are lined up, I can pull this back on. If it doesn't look like it's going all the way, I can go back and I can loosen it a little more. Let's see. And that hole might not be perfectly lined up. I'm just gonna wiggle around. I can look down in there through these little vents right here. I can loosen that some more. So pull that back on. Maybe a little twist. I'm actually gonna come over here and I'm gonna loosen this screw a little bit too. That'll make it easier. Just slide this part along the tube, just in case it's actually making it harder for the shaft to get pulled back on. So with that loose, I could actually move this whole thing, but I'm just gonna pull that back on. And a nice way to be able to tell that you're lined up is to see down in there. You can't see it very well on camera, but if you look through these vents in person, you'll be able to see where that tube has been locked onto there before. So I can slide this around, I can find it. Sometimes you're gonna have to do some wiggling if it's not totally lined up. If that's the case, it's annoying, but you can always loosen this guy some more and actually slide this up away from it. That way you can wiggle it. Make sure those gear teeth are fully locking in. So I just felt it slide on there. So now that I know it's totally locked onto the engine, I'm gonna have to make sure that these handles and this plastic housing here is lined up with the guard here on the blade. And I'm gonna tighten this so they can't move. And we can adjust this later too, if it's a problem. But I'm just gonna tighten that a little bit, just so that if I pull on this a little bit, it's not gonna slide. It's gonna still pull on this guy. So here, make sure that's good. And then loosening this a little bit. Now that I know the shaft is in the right place, now this guy is slid too forward. I'm gonna loosen this a little bit. And watching those vibration dampeners, I'm gonna pull this all the way back onto it. They're never gonna push all the way on, but you wanna get it pretty close. Once you've got it there, go ahead, tighten this guy back up a little bit, and pull it from there too. A little bit of a gap down here is fine. Tighten this. You really don't want to over tighten this one. It could strip easy, but you want to tighten it so it's snug. If it comes looser later, you know how to tighten it again. Come back here, make sure this guy's nice and tight still. See, this one's still loose. So I'm gonna tighten this guy. And this one, you can tighten a little tighter than that other one. Just like that, the gear head is back on the shaft.